Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. And with that, we're going to get right after it. Today, this is going to be a little bit different for you. For those of you who have followed along for a long time, you've seen these before, but they are not the most common type of podcast that I put together. Your tip of the day today is know your audience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down a situation, one in which we will see an adult not being very adult-like and a kid being a very typical kid. In this situation, knowing your audience is critical to success. The adult in this situation totally screwed it up. Now, I want to preface with this. I have listened to Piers Morgan for quite a while, and I'm going to tear this apart because I can. And a lot of what Piers Morgan has done historically, I've actually enjoyed and appreciated because he puts together panels of people. I can't just call up Piers Morgan and say, hey, Piers, want to talk because I think you screwed this one up. That's just not in my wheelhouse. One, I don't have his number. And two, I'm a nobody compared to him in terms of the social arena. And so what difference would that make? He'd be like, oh, who are you? And why are you talking to me? Look, I know my limitations. With that in mind, if he ever did call me and say, hey, Jeremiah from Healthy Perspectives, which I'm easy to track down, I would absolutely have this conversation with him because what he did was really messed up and it did not represent me as a man and me as a person who cares about humanity, people very well. And I think it needs to be addressed. So what I'm going to do instead is with my freedom of speech abilities is I'm going to just go ahead and break it down, give it to you how I see it, and then let you decide whether, maybe I'm the dumb one here. Maybe I'm making mistakes. Okay. But if I'm not, I want you to see what I see and understand that this is how this trap works. All right. So your tip of the day again is know your audience. And what we are going to do here, I got to change some settings. What we are going to do here is I'm going to take you into a podcast done by Piers Morgan, where he interviews a Cornell student that is being canceled, actively being canceled by our culture, which I totally disagree with, which I will summarize that as we go as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a taste of what's to come. I'm going to let him set the tone for you. So take a listen to this.
Thank you.
Last month, a teenage Ivy League student made global headlines for declining a job interview for an internship on the basis of the boss's religion. Austin Franco, a student at the prestigious Cornell University, told the prospective employers that he was, quote, not interested in working for a Jew. The two Jewish brothers who ran the company went public, and the remarks started a media furore, including days of dedicated coverage on Fox News.
Okay, so what's going on here? It's pretty simple to see that this 19-year-old said to some people who were Jewish, I don't want to work for Jews. That sounds really naive, really foolish. And it's not the best practice, right? Like there's better ways of going about this. But why did he do it? Look, if we don't know our audience, if we don't know why he's doing what he's doing, then we fall into what Piers Morgan ends up falling into. All right. So who's the audience, right? A 19-year-old kid who, for all intents and purposes, outwardly appears to be anti-Semitic. That sounds like a problem. I agree that could be a little bit of an issue. But who is he really? When we get a chance here in just a second to listen to this kid, you may find that he is not as evil as he is being painted out to be. Matter of fact, I want you to pay close attention to the reality that the way Pierce just framed that is that these Jewish people went public. They went public to attack this kid for being anti-Semitic. You may be asking, why does that matter? But when you hear this, you may understand it in a little bit of a different view. So take a listen.
And I just wanted to see what would happen, to be frank. I was curious what the reaction would be by the Jewish community and by the United States collectively.
This sounds like a kid who is curious. That's what it sounds like to me. You've got a kid here who is simply curious about how the response will go if he says this this unthinkable thing out loud. All right. Now, should you run an experiment like this? Probably not. Probably not. Not probably the best practice. But you're talking about a 19-year-old kid who doesn't understand how social experiments work. Put it in perspective for a second. 19 years old today. Rewind 6 years ago. What was going on? COVID. So take 6 years off his life. Kid's 13 years old. At 13 years old, his whole life got interrupted. The adults in his world were going crazy. This is a kid who's trying to figure out how to make sense of all this weird stuff, where we can be manipulated to take vaccines that don't work, where we could, be taking, wearing triple, quadruple masks that we know were not effective and actually to some degree could be harmful in some cases. Like, we felt as adults, we created this distrust that he is expressing there. But wait until you hear this next part, thinking again about these Jewish kids. And I'm not blaming Jewish people. I'm just stating the facts. These Jewish kids who went public with him saying, I don't want to work for a Jew. Listen to what he says next.
At Cornell, one of my friends at Virginia Tech as well, before I transferred to Cornell, said we should genocide all Palestinians. We should have done it 50 years ago in one fell sweep so that everyone would forget about it. And then while at Cornell, 2 out of the 3 house managers for the apartment complex I was living in were also Jewish and made up things about me that weren't true and dragged me through the mud. And the university, like the Civil Rights Office, they would drag me through it and make up random statements about me that weren't true to get me in trouble. And they ultimately kicked me out of the house right before finals as well.
Folks, who's the audience here? Like, who is this kid? This is not complicated. This is a kid that was hurt. He was hurt by people that represent a specific group. That's what it was. He was hurt. He was hurt by people that represent a specific group. In this case, Jewish people. Why does that matter? Because you, me, all of us represent groups, whether we like it or not. We either we self-select into groups, or we are placed in them by other people, sometimes not even to our own knowledge. Right? I'm a male. I represent all men. Pierce is a male. He represents all men as well. In this particular situation, Pierce does not represent me well. We are dealing with a kid who is a victim. Potentially. Now, there's facts together, but if what he says is accurate, he was a victim at the university. And if he says that this was accurate, it would then seem to be validated by the fact that this group of Jewish kids, that I don't know who they are, then decided to take this kid's naivete public. They decided to go public, not this kid. This kid didn't go public first. He didn't say, hey, guess what I did? I told them I don't want to work for Jews. He didn't do that. He is responding to the reality that these other kids decided to go public with this on Fox News. That's what Piers told us. And if that's the case, it would actually support the claim that this guy, this 19-year-old kid, was actually harmed. That he was actually harmed by these other kids. Why? Because it's consistent messaging, folks. They attacked me. And then what did they do when he screwed up publicly like this? Like, not publicly originally. He sent a letter. That's all he did. They attacked him again. That actually seems consistent. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that the way this kid did it was good and healthy. I'm just saying, know your audience. This kid, he set a boundary saying, I'm not going to actually go and work for a Jewish person because I've recently been hurt by Jewish people. Here, let me frame it a slightly different way for you. If a woman was abused by her husband and decided that she was not going to associate with him or other men, for that matter, for a period of time, would you hate her and call her hateful names and interview her and tell her that she's the problem? Doesn't that sound absurd? This kid set boundaries that were probably the wrong boundary. But the fact that he was hurt and harmed, okay, fine. He's trying to set a boundary. And unfortunately, what you're going to see here in just a moment, or listen to here in just a moment, is a poor example of a man representing men trying to develop and grow men. It's just a really poor example. What Piers does instead is tries to tell him what he should do. And then the kid tries, the clip after that, we'll get into the freedom of association, which Piers completely ignores the kid. That's messed up. You got a 19-year-old who's curious and has been harmed, for all intents and purposes, potentially at least. You don't pile on there and ignore them and then cancel them at the end. That's bad practice. But before we get to that, I want you to hear how Piers responds to this kid, what Piers tries to tell him he's supposed to do.
Austin,
Okay.
It's not that you said something immature or stupid or anything like that, because had you then said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it, I don't mean the way it came across, but it's the opposite with you. You do mean it. You don't want to be around any Jewish people. That's 15 million Jewish people. So therefore you are de facto anti-Semitic.
What he does there that's kind of messed up is Piers has an objective. His single objective, his solitary goal there is to make the kid say, I am anti-Semitic, that I hate Jewish people. And the kid does not want to say that. That's just not what he wants to say. What he espouses is that he has been hurt by some Jewish people. And that for right now, he's saying, I have the freedom to associate or not associate with whoever I want, and I want to take advantage of that. And you'll get to hear that here in just a second, because I'm going to play that part for you here right now?
I believe in freedom of association. That's fundamentally what it comes down to. You have jocks and nerds in high schools, and the jocks make fun of the nerds all the time because they can't get laid or they can't get a girlfriend, right? Yeah, it's not a nice thing to say once again, but it's not the end of the world. And just because the jocks don't want to associate with the nerds does not make them bad people. It doesn't.
Folks, that was actually very well articulated. That was well articulated. We do have the ability to associate with who we want to associate to a degree. And he's saying there is a group I don't really care to associate with for now at this time. Fine. He is not saying, I hate you. He's saying, he literally said, I've been harmed by a group of people. You are those group of people, and I'd rather not work for a Jew. Did he say it well? Did he say it in the politically correct way? No, of course not. And if you expect a 19-year-old to have the wherewithal to be politically correct on everything, you may be absolutely not very smart. That was the nicest way I could say it. You might not be very smart. And because a 19-year-old trying to be politically correct, it's just unusual. It doesn't work well. And when they are, it's because they were trained to be. And I'm going to be honest, that's more disgusting to me, because that's somebody who's just playing a game. That's all they're doing. They're just playing the game. They're not learning. They're just, somebody taught me to say it like this, I'm going to say it like this. We do see, a matter of fact, right now, I wish I knew the names right off the top of my head. There's this guy that sometimes is on Piers Morgan's show, and he's a hardcore Democrat, and he says really dumb things, but he says them in politically correct ways that people are just like, well, whatever. I mean, who cares? He's just being political. But they're really unintelligent, like incredibly unintelligent things. And so I don't care that the kid at 19 is not politically correct. That will come. He'll figure that part out. Those edges will be smoothed off if we take care of him. And if we say, hey, look, man, you're off the mark on some things and you're on the mark with some things. It makes sense. You're 19. You're going to get some things right and some things wrong. But let me help you out here. Instead, what we end up with, man, this is where Pierce goes absolutely off the rails. He muddies the water. He switches up topics multiple times in the next few minutes. It's terrible. Right? Have a listen.
It's a multicultural society.
Then you know what, Austin? I knew you'd say no, because you're just not only stupid, but you're a massive hypocrite. Because you're blaming 15 million Jews for the decision making by a prime minister and a government in Israel, which has nothing to do with the vast majority of Jewish people worldwide, many of whom hate it as much as I do. But when the same logic that you've espoused is applied to a war in Iran waged by this American administration, your position is not you want nothing to do with Americans, is it? Because you're a hypocrite. And you don't understand the difference, because frankly, I think you're too wound up in enjoying the ride of being the most famous anti-Semite in America. I just find it incredibly depressing that a young man, given the privilege that you've had to go to a top university, could be this thick, or worse, not care about what you're saying and the consequences to a huge number of people around the world who see.
Folks, he calls him stupid. He calls him thick. He's labeling him. He's expecting a 19-year-old to understand world politics, global politics. No, he doesn't get it, right? And not only that, but if you listen to it, he wasn't even talking about the global politics. Pierce brought that in. Pierce had an agenda, and he really set the kid up to fail. Now, You may be like, awesome, get Pierce some clicks. I don't agree. For me, matter of fact, I'd love to sit down with Pierce and have a conversation. I would talk about this. I'll answer whatever question Pierce wants to throw at me. I don't care. I would be fine with that. Why? Because what he did here was he took humanity out of it. He judged, he criticized, he put this kid in a box and basically said, good luck ever getting out of this. That's what he did. And I don't agree with that. I think that that is cruel. And I think it's really messed up. If he didn't want to talk to the kid, he didn't have to invite him on the show. Do that. Just do that. Don't invite him on the show. I would have much more respect for you if you didn't, if I'm talking about Pierce, I would have much more respect for a person who just says, I don't want to talk to this guy because I don't think I would handle it very well. Know your limitations, but he didn't. And it gets worse. You're like, how could it get any worse? But listen, I want you to hear this. This is absolutely incredible where Pierce decides to go with this. He does one of the most childish things older people do in this world. He decides to publicly cancel this kid. Listen.
And you know what? I was prepared to give you a bit of a fairer hearing about the people calling for you to be cancelled and unemployable and so on. You kind of make yourself unemployable.
I'd like to explain myself, but you keep cutting me off.
I wouldn't. Had you said I'm sorry,
I'm not asking
had you expressed any remorse, had you done any of those things, I'd say, yeah, you know what, you've been dealt a harsh lesson in life, but you've learned your lesson, move on. You haven't learned your lesson, Austin. You've doubled down. You're proud of it. And so for that reason, I don't give a toss what happens to you, frankly. So I don't care. You've explained yourself. You're an anti-Semite and you're a hypocrite. And you know what?
Piers.
Future employers can watch this interview and they can decide if you have the values that they wish to have in their company. Good luck with that. Good luck with it. That's the end of this interview. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Piers.
He goes on there and he says, anti-Semite, hypocrite, and Piers Morgan, doubles down on, you are, in fact, unemployable. That is messed up. That is so messed up. Look, if the kid is stupid, there's an easy test for this. Let him talk. Don't cut him off all the time. Don't tell him who he is. Let him tell you who he is. Because if he's stupid, stupid shows up. It's that simple. If he's immature, then immature shows up. And what does it look like when somebody who's immature shows up? They say stupid things. It can look kind of like stupid. But when immature shows up, the biggest difference is they start to see their own stupidity and their own limitations because they're not stupid. So if you wanted him to show that he's either immature or stupid, what you would do is you'd set it up to let him talk, to actually let him get his arguments out. And some of his arguments were naive. He hardly got to tell any of them, but there were some naive ones in there. Pierce did most of the talking as far as I could tell. Matter of fact, it'd be interesting to time it and see how many minutes was Pierce and how many was this kid. It was a total of 17 minutes of conversation. I'll bet it was close to a 12-4 split. 12 Pierce, 11-5, maybe something like that, where it was a lot of Piers Morgan and a little bit of this kid. If you want to know if he's stupid, you got to let him talk, and everybody will be able to tell he's stupid. If you want, and here's the thing, Pierce totally let these Jewish kids that attacked him at the university, and these Jewish kids that then went public to criticize him off the hook. Now, maybe Pierce knows something I don't know, but that seems kind of messed up. That seems like he's maybe prejudiced himself, and he thinks that, you know, the Jewish kids should get a free pass, because he never addressed that. He also never addressed that the kid was potentially a victim. Like, he just ignored, and he completely ignored the freedom of association. Like, if you go back and you listen to that, and I encourage you, go for it. Go ahead. I pulled it up on Spotify. You could do the same. Like, go ahead, listen to Pierce, and let me know if I'm way off the mark. It was at the tail end of his podcast called Devastating Defeat, just from last week. Here's what I'm going to leave you with, folks. One, to choose to hang out or not hang out with a group does not mean you are hateful toward that group. Anti-Semitism is about hatred toward a group. I hate the group because they are that group of Jewish people, right? It'd be like racism is about hating the group. It doesn't mean, like, if, you know, there's certain places in this world where I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm probably not going to hang out with the ladies. It doesn't mean I don't like ladies. Right? If I go to a knitting conference, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to hang out with the ladies. Does that make me hateful? No, not at all. That's freedom of association at that point. Right? Now, the kid didn't do it well. I agree. But he even acknowledged he didn't probably do it the best way. He said that in the podcast. Right? The other thing is, Pierce went in to say he was trying to find out if we should ruin a 19-year-old's life. And he came out ruining a 19-year-old's life. That is an a-hole move, right? If the kid were like grabbing an Uzi and going into the mall, sure, ruin his life. I'm behind you 100%, because that is absolutely heinous, right? This doesn't rate that. Okay. He wanted to run a social experiment. He was curious. All right, I'm going to leave you with these three things. Number one, what groups do you represent? And don't tell me none. If you do that, you're just being dumb. Sorry. It's true. Don't tell me none. You represent a group either you have self-selected into, or you have been selected to become part of. They have taken you. Right? Do you self-select, or were you selected to be in the LGBTQ? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Me, I'm Jeremiah. I represent me. I represent Healthy Perspectives. I also represent men. I represent Christians, right? Do I like that I represent all these things all the time? Probably not. Do I like that other people represent these things on my behalf? Definitely not. There are Christians that do not represent me well. There are men that do not represent me well. There are Rotarians. I don't know, all my Rotarian people, they all represent us pretty good for the most part. There are a few exceptions, but they're not bad. There are going to be, so here's what I'm getting at. What groups do you represent? If you don't think you're representing somebody in every interaction you're in, you're being foolish, right? Those Jewish kids were representing the however many millions that Pierce suggested there are for Jewish people on the planet. Those kids were representing all of them. And they did not, if that kid is accurate in this, they did not represent Jewish people well. And the people who should be fixing this are the Jewish people. They should be getting their arms around those kids saying, dude, why would you mess up this kid's life like that? Even if you're right, the way you're going about this is wrong. You don't harm somebody to make a point. Or the Jewish people will be known as people who like to harm other people, which is what this kid is saying. And if you're going to harm other people, I would choose not to associate with you. Great. So you're not going to hang out with murderers and okay, fine. Freedom of association, which is the next point. Point number 2. You are free to associate. How you choose to associate or distance yourself from a group does matter. The how matters. So be thoughtful, be careful about how you go about it. This kid could have just said, I don't want the job anymore. And this would never have been a thing ever. But he decided he wanted to play fun games and get fun prizes. Well, that's costing him. And in some ways, rightfully so. But that doesn't mean Piers had to be a jerk. Okay. The next one, last one. Cancel culture was stupid. It is stupid. And it will always be stupid. Cancel culture is dumb. It's just dumb. The best way to cancel somebody is to give them the mic. Let their stupidity be known by anybody and everybody who wants to listen, and then counter it with intelligence. That's the best way. You don't need to cancel anybody. Ever. I would have preferred Piers say something like this. Look, I am getting all fired up and I am going to become less of the man that I should be. And so I'm going to need to end this here because I don't think we're seeing each other clearly. And with that, you have a good day. That would have been a man thing to do. A responsible thing to do. Instead of just hitting the big button and saying, well, I'm just going to go ahead and show you how the world's going to treat you. Boom. I didn't listen to you. I didn't acknowledge your challenges. I actually labeled you as privileged. Piers did that. The kid didn't do that. I don't know this kid. Maybe he's got privileges. Maybe he doesn't. He got to Cornell. Maybe he's scholarshiped. I don't know. I'm guessing Piers doesn't know. To cancel somebody is just a jerk move. Shouldn't be done quite like that. Folks, I hope you're hearing what I'm throwing down. There's some interesting content here, but you got to know your audience. If your audience is a victim and you attack them, you're just kind of being a jerk. And we don't know if he was a victim. I probably would have paused the interview there and stuck on that. Piers, he had an agenda. I don't know if he's just going for clickbait or whatever. I don't know what he's doing, but it sure wasn't being a man and guiding another man into manhood, which is what you should do for a 19-year-old. Like, be a man, help them learn how to see things more accurately. Nah, he was super into the labeling him anti-Semitic and stupid and all the things. And that's just, there's no place for that, folks. I hope this helps. If you like this, please subscribe, do all those things. Follow us. I know our releases are a little bit on the sporadic side, summertime schedule. It's hard to be more consistent. But you can subscribe and you'll get notified when we release. We tend to release Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays right now. Folks, I hope this helps you in conversations with others. That's the most important thing to me. Take this information, share it with friends, and have dialogue. Right? If I'm off the mark, send me an email, whatever. I'm easy to find, folks. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms. But you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com healthy-podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.